right, folks, welcome to another edition of our In the Lab with Alchemy. This is our fifth session of the year, and today we have a fun topic. We're going to be bringing in our friends from CyberArk and one of our experts, Mr. Grassman, to talk about how AI is changing the enterprise and how the heck do we keep up from a security perspective? So I got a great panel today. And for those who don't know me, my name is Pete Downing. I run these. I've been doing it for about 2.5 years now. And it's a good time. We have fun. And the goal is to keep the topics fresh and keep the content flowing so that you guys stay interested. So with me today, I got veteran, Mr. Mark Grassman. Mark, how you doing, man? Can you give yourself a quick intro? What do you do for Alchemy and any fun news on your side?
Yeah, thanks, Pete. Mark Grassman, run the cyber practice here at Alchemy. Been with the organization a little over 4 years, but been on the consulting advisor reseller side the last 20 years. So nothing really fun to share at the moment. Excited to get into the topic here and just share what we're hearing and seeing from customers and help to demystify a little bit of the hype. So
awesome. Well, thank you for joining. As always, you're a regular on this, and it's fun to get on with you. I always learn something new when I talk with you, so I can't wait to hear what you got to say. All right, and then we got two gentlemen from CyberArk, and smart guys, and I'm going to learn a lot, I know. So the first gentleman, Chris, give yourself a quick intro. Where are you based, and how long have you been with CyberArk?
Yeah, cool. Chris Maroon, field CTO at CyberArk, based in Raleigh, North Carolina, unless I'm sitting in an airport somewhere, different times that I get to travel. And I've been at CyberArk for 14 years. And this is officially my 20th year in the privileged access management space. So I've been around the block, seen a ton of changes. And I'm looking forward to sharing some stuff with you guys today.
So when you hear someone has admin access to their endpoint, you cringe probably, right?
That's always one of the first questions for sure.
All right. Then we got Mr. John Nippers. John, give yourself a quick intro. How long you been at CyberArk and where are you based?
Hey, hi everyone. Thanks. Yeah, John Nippers. I'm a senior channel solutions engineer at CyberArk. Been here a little over 3 years. Came over from the customer side, so really helps to understand and have conversations that way. But I'm based out of Houston, Texas, but I support both really US and Canada from a channel perspective. Thanks for having us.
All right, let's jump into just really quickly. If you're not familiar with Alchemy Technology Group, we are a nationwide value-added reseller, and we specialize in selling not only technology and technology solutions, but also implementing them and having smart guys like Mark Grassman come in and advise you and not only give you good anecdotes, but also support you along the process if you choose to go with CyberArk or any of the other solutions we sell. Again, we are nationwide. And alchemists sit across the country. We have 32 plus vendor awards, and we've built our business on what we call trust. And we have a mantra that says, before we can be first, you have to be the best. So that's where we focus. And then if you look across our expertise, we cover from everything from cyber all the way around to app development. So if you have any projects impacting you today in any of these buckets, don't hesitate to nudge me with a Q&A, and I can send you some more information. But I'm not going to sit here and try to give you the marketing pitch on Alchemy, because we're going to talk about cybersecurity today. And we're going to focus on that side of the business. And we got one of the best in the business, Mr. Mark Grassman. He's going to take us through the general state of securing AI. So Mark, I'm going to pass the baton over to you and let you kind of take us through setting the stage for our friends at CyberArk.
All right. Well, I'm not going to spend an incredible amount of time specifically talking about the merits of AI for your business. Sure, everybody is somewhat overstimulated by all the hype around AI. However, I want to specifically talk about a couple of the trends that we're seeing in the marketplace and across our customer and prospects, and what we see those organizations that are most effectively executing on various AI strategies actually leveraging. So these were the two statistics I pulled from Gartner that I thought were very, very relevant in why you continue to hear from your business leaders, from boards, about the adoption of various AI technology within your organization. By 2028, the idea is that 80% of your knowledge workers are going to be leveraging some type of productivity assistant to, again, enhance their abilities to produce and consume for the organization. But what we find is, most organizations are ill prepared for what that technology actually unleashes, and we'll talk briefly about that. And then more recently, the rise of agents. Gartner's referring here that a third of organizations by 2028 are going to have software that includes agent-based AI, and that's a significant development from just over the last year. So both your users being more productive by leveraging enhancement solutions, as well as these agents, performing capabilities, that's really what we see most organizations focusing on. I like to really organize this into two buckets, and it also helps define where security typically is lacking and where a focus should be employed. I really break up the two functions that I see most organizations either leveraging or exploring to leverage at the moment between consume and build AI. I've already spoke to some of the particular elements of productivity-based AI solution, like the chatbots and co-pilots, and more recently, the agentic solutions entering the marketplace from various platform vendors. Some of your organizations, if again, there is a strong in-house development or digital technology is a revenue generating element of your business, may also be starting to see adoption of AI models and AI enhancement to apps that you use within your organization or that are customer facing. This is really where there still is a lot of unknown of how to secure not only those models, but the way that developers are leveraging AI. And that's also a very interesting topic that we'll get into here with the panel as it relates to non-human identity security specifically. But at the end of the day, what we see is the best practice and still a lot of organization ill prepared for when they start going down the journey of these various AI initiatives. AI exacerbates immaturity of things like identity governance and data governance that every organization has struggled with programming as they mature their IT operations and cyber operations capabilities. For those that don't understand or are not familiar, especially as it relates to productivity enhancement AI, those solutions, the robot functionality of those tools, leverage the inherent rights and capabilities of the identity of the user. And what we commonly find is users have overprivileged access throughout an organization that they may not have leveraged for ill intent previously, but once they are enhanced with the capabilities of productivity AI, that very quickly becomes apparent and potentially puts privacy or other data sensitivity, security concerns at the forefront. As well as when we start talking about agentic, what that AI is able to access in other systems on behalf of the users or on behalf of productivity may be well overprivileged from what that job role or function is allowed to perform. And in certain regulated industries where segregation of duties is an enforceable compliance construct, you can very quickly find yourself not meeting those compliance requirements. So really the recommendations and what we really think good looks like from customers that are executing on these AI initiatives is by following best practices, going back to implementing good identity and privileged governance, as well as good data security. So we're going to hear specifically from Chris and John from CyberArk about how they're helping customers modernize that identity governance and that privileged management environment in your organizations to better prepare and equip the organization to take advantage of these AI enhancements that are coming barreling down to your organizations.
Perfect. Thanks, Mark and Pete, for putting this together and asking us to come along and have a good time with you guys today. We're obviously really excited to be here and to be able to share some of our topics of conversations that we have with customers all the time. And we'll show a little bit of the solution. We definitely are in a position where we want to put a face to the name. I think it's really important when we start talking about technologies to see what type of activity that would look like for an end user. So I'll start us off just talking a little bit about trends, where we see some trends in the market space, and some of the conversations that I've had over the last several months, even into last year. But, human privileges, I think, is the big thing. Just kind of understanding every organization and where privileges kind of extend, hyper focus on everything rather than what we did before. CyberArk has been in the business for 20 plus years, and I think for the vast majority of that time frame, we've been hyper focused on the IT administrator, what might fit in the IT walls. And I think that we've realized that these privileges that potentially could be used in a malicious way exist outside of those IT walls. Now, of course, obviously, the other pillars that you see on the screen here with the rise in machines and AI being everywhere, it's tough for us to not focus on everything that is revolved around identity security in a lot of different ways. And so we put this slide together really to just kind of show that immediate growth. Starting on the right side, we've got customers that are all over the place as far as where and what type of cloud services that they're using. And you can see that 84% of customers utilize multiple cloud service providers, which is pretty crazy. And that probably is going to continue to rise as they start running into roadblocks on what a CSP has some advantages or potentially disadvantages for. But on the left-hand side of the house, I remember when this survey kind of went out asking about machine identities. Now, this is where it was before, was 45-1 for last year, just in 2024. 45-1 machines to humans. So one for every one human identity in an organization, there are 45 machines, or were 45 machines. Before that, I can remember that number being in the high 20s, early 30s. And the big jump there was when RPA was a big thing. And then now we've near about doubled the amount of identities that exist within every organization from a machine side of the house. And you can attribute that to agentic AI. So the growth is massive, and not just agentic AI, but just AI in general that might need some sort of privileged access in general. So we look at it from a spectrum across the board. Humans, this consists of all of our workforce, IT individuals, dev adjacent, so think platform engineering, developers, etc. And then the machines are keeping up with a number of different, we'll call them sub identities or sub-spectrum of identities there. And you can kind of see the access is the same. An AI agent might need access to your desktop, just like a human would. If you're using platforms like People AI that, have the ability to scrub what, an individual might be doing that benefits the organization in general, not necessarily over the shoulder, big brother type watching, but how is your process different from somebody else's, and why might you be more successful than the next person? And agentic AI might be the reason for that. So there's different spectrum of identities, but concentrating on the human side of the house for a bit, we know that the governed side of identity security was a natural fit in the overall spectrum of what is privileged access, what is identity security. Obviously with PAM being something that I'm very familiar with, what happened after that was the kind of introduction of PAM and IAM kind of coming together. And now I think the natural fit with IGA just makes a big play for us to be able to fit in that category. We know what those challenges look like for a lot of organizations. Zilla not being necessarily a new company, but being a new way of looking at IGA, and what can we do differently than what has been the norm for the last several years. We can see where people are concentrating on, meaning that it's not just about, access reviews in general, but it's more, what about a security view of way that we can look at access reviews, understanding what people should have access to. How can we take that to the next step, which would be a zero standing privileges architecture to kind of fit that zero trust kind of mindset. So we took these challenges, or Zilla and now CyberArk kind of took those challenges. And of course, we started to think, how do we improve the process? How do we eliminate the need for a human to interject? And so using AI-based pre-approvals really just kind of takes a new pattern for organizations these days, where when cloud kind of, or SaaS, we'll say cloud utilization in SaaS really kind of disrupted the traditional or foundational IGA process. Now we have a little bit more leverage when we can use AI. Should this person have access to? Why? All of these things really kind of come into play, and we can use those AI profiles to really kind of take shape there. If we look at it from an AI perspective and what it is that CyberArk's kind of mindset and how we kind of shifted our thought processes around this, we didn't want to just jump all in and say, we're just going to secure all AI. We have to, or use AI to make our processes better. We wanted to kind of do it all. And so, we know that attackers are going to take that mindset of securing or using AI to potentially do threats or create threats, malicious activity within every organization. And then obviously agentic AI, which we'll talk about towards the end. But with AI, we did a lot. We started thinking, how can we utilize AI to better the acceleration of predicting and adjusting to identity threats across the organization? And so in 2024, we announced Cora.ai or Cora AI to our customer base. And essentially the idea here was really just to kind of make our processes better. How do we make recommendations for policies? How do we increase the level of activity from an administration side of the house by giving tools to those admins and making the administration that much easier, plus session summaries of, hey, this is an 8-hour session, but this is what you should be looking at. And we're kind of summarizing and then also using AI to point your attention to certain potential malicious activity within those sessions. But the real response kind of mindset kind of came into play in several different actions: reauthentication, killing sessions, enforcing PAM controls, blocking, restricting, all of these things is kind of the idea here. And we're doing that with our threat detection and response capabilities. Now, this is something that John is going to show off in a little while, but we started thinking about the Uber breach, which kind of happened months and months and months ago. And what could have we done and where could have we have sat? And there's several positions in that breach kind of flow chart that we could have interjected. But the biggest one, right, we could kind of think if we're revolving around privileged accounts, is just knowing that an end user in that breach, there was some stolen credentials out of a shell script that allowed that attacker to gain access to their vault and pull out credentials. And essentially, we would have caught that activity with the solution to be able to say, hey, based on other known behavioral patterns, that user ID doesn't really check out those types of passwords, or maybe they don't do it as often. And so using AI as well as some machine learning and user behavioral analytics, we're able to kind of capture some of that activity. So AI is playing a big role in not only, what you guys are doing with AI, but also what we're doing with AI. And I wanted to kind of start here. Now, kind of transitioning a little bit, talking about end users and what does modern PAM mean? So for the longest of time, as many years as I've been in the business, 20 in fact, PAM has been, when I ask people, well, tell me your definition of PAM. It's always been, yes, modern PAM, PAM has been vaulting and rotation of credentials and session management and that type of thing. And we started to think, how do we advance this? How do we make it so much better? And so starting at the bottom of the pyramid, right, standing access gave us that capability of securing, those credentials. But as we started to move forward, we saw this credential sprawl happening, even if they were vaulted, and there was so many accounts out there. And we started to think, well, what can we do to move on to the next phase? And that next phase started as just in time. And we wanted to elevate that experience by doing something different than just having those policies that says, yes, you can access from 8 to 5 every single day. Okay, well, great. Well, what happens if I go on vacation? That means that my elevation has already taken place, even if I'm not in the office. So zero standing privileges kind of gave us that next step, that next vision of what just in time really needs to be about. And so with the kind of that level up, it's only providing those privileges whenever it's necessary for the least amount of time. And that's the essential benefit of where just in time kind of stops and where zero standing privileges kind of begins, because it fits into the model. The model of foundational PAM controls still exists. We still have to have the vault. Those credentials of SID 500 and root and SA on all those databases that you have, they still exist. They're not going anywhere. But the operational access is what changed all of that. So we had customers coming to us and saying, hey, we've got system level access all really kind of taken care of because we're using a vault and we're vaulting all these accounts. But what about operational access? Can we do just in time? Can we do zero standing privileges? Can we do least privilege in a lot of models? And so we started thinking, well, how can we do this? How can we achieve it by keeping the system access, keeping the foundational PAM processes under control, as you can't get rid of those foundational user IDs for every system. But what we can do is eliminate the necessity to use vaulted accounts. Now, I know that sounds a little bit weird coming from a CyberArk employee, but the idea of putting those into a black box scenario is probably the better way to do it. So if we black box all of our privileged accounts and leave them away, that doesn't necessarily mean that people have to use them. So there's a better way. There's a more modern way of doing it. Now, if a vaulted account is necessary to be used, yes, we can, of course, achieve that even in this modern process world, which John is going to show you that workflow here in a little bit. But from a zero standing privileges approach, it's the ephemerality that CyberArk is providing. It's saying that John Smith, the admin, can initiate a connection to a target server, authenticate himself, and then we're going to create an ephemeral shadow version of John Smith at that moment and give John Smith the right privileges to that target server, whether it's Windows or Linux or a database or a web session. We're going to provide that dynamic capability of an ephemeral account because at the end of that session, that account just disappears. And we don't have to worry about it anymore. We don't have to worry about vaulting that account. Now, this can also be with, let's say, for example, a local account on a target system if you really want to isolate the privileges. Or if they need domain level resource action, of course, we can provide that domain level access as well. Now, this same flexibility has to go into the cloud because we know that we've taken care of all these root level passwords, or we'll call them firewall IDs to the cloud. But what about getting deeper? What about being able to assign resource level access whenever it's necessary? And how do we provide that? What if we take away everybody's access to a target cloud provider? Because today, this is probably what it looks like. You've got end users, they've been assigned certain privileges based on role activity, or they've been assigned to a group which is connected to a role in that CSP. But what if we took it away? What if this is the new norm where nobody has default permissions assigned to them? And then whenever it's necessary that they need that privilege, it's like, okay, here are the roles that are available to you based on policy that you can utilize. So that way, during the session, the end user has the permissions that they need, but then the real magic kicks in at the end of that session because we can take it away. This leaves zero standing privileges across those CSPs, which allows us to be able to control what the user has access to, when they have access to it, and how long they have access to it. And they don't have to worry about going on vacation to Jamaica somewhere because it doesn't matter if their account is compromised because their account has zero level privileges. So what we want to do is we want to kind of, like I said before, we want to put a face to that name of these solution capabilities. And so John is going to kind of walk through some of those use cases, and then we'll talk about the fun bits at the end about agentic AI. So John, I'll turn it over to you, my friend.
So yeah, one thing I wanted to show is specifically around the zero standing privilege when it comes to how an administrator accesses the endpoints that we know that they need to actually manage. The evolution of PAM, that modern PAM approach, really introduces that zero standing privilege, but the ease of access and the change of the culture is actually there, and we understand that. So one of the things around secure infrastructure access, it introduces this ability to use our connection guidance to create an easy access for, specifically here, we're focusing on an RDP with zero standing privilege for an on-prem resource. But what it does is we do know that there is that ability to create that string or need to create that string, and that's what we're doing. So this is creating a one-time RDP file based off of my authentication into this platform through single sign-on, proving who I am with multi-factor authentication. But as it creates the file for me, creating the string within there. This file can be used, it can be added into Remote Desktop Manager or whatever, but this really starts that process of ease of access in for that ephemeral access into that particular workstation that I'm connecting to. And as you can see on the screen, one thing, I'm being recorded. We're still continuing that. But my username, while has a slight link to me for logging purposes, is truly an ephemeral account. It's creating that on this workstation as it's connected in. I'm connected in based on my role as an administrator. It's policy driven to give me that access. I am now into this particular workstation. I can or server. I can manage anything that I want. Once again, maintaining that full log of what's happening within here. Not only the logging capabilities, but one of the things about it, and we'll touch on it, is the TDR side and just truly risk management of what I am doing on this particular workstation. So I'm going to, and as I mentioned, I'm going to go ahead and log out of this one. This is an ephemeral access. It's granting me the access at the time of login. When I disconnect from this session, it removes that standing privilege. I am not a full administrator to this machine at all times. It does take a second. Let me minimize this. So as we get back into it, so the administrators, while managing those particular endpoints, we also know that the data center has changed, right? So when it comes to a data center, now we're moving more cloud resources. Now data centers are no longer physical presence. They're now moved out as that digital transformation has extended that out to multiple cloud providers. So we still have resources that we need to manage. Continuing with that zero standing privilege concept, this, once again, policy driven, access to the endpoint. But based on my role, I am going to connect in through a single sign-on capability to that cloud resource. I'm going to connect into my AWS environment. My normal account, once again, we are step recording, continuing that same security control that we've always had around being able to have not only a visual recording, but a logging of what is being done. But I'm going to connect in. But as I connect in, it's setting that policy based on my role as an administrator. I simply have a policy that allows me to this console. But then it takes over with the roles and responsibilities that are built into the cloud providers, this one being AWS specific, customizable, of course, but I'm going to connect into this admin access, this giving me full admin access into the AWS console, maintaining that recording. But as you can see at the top, my privilege has been elevated at the time I request that role. At that time of elevation, I have control. I'm able to do things, once again, maintaining full logging of what I am doing for accountability and as well as security risk management. But with my account, I'm given that control. Once again, zero standing privilege, ephemeral access to this environment as I close out of this console. That particular privilege that I've been granted or elevated to is removed from my account. That's showing you two examples of how to get into infrastructure resources and secure ways using modern PAM and the evolution of PAM and how we've really improved the workflow to create that zero standing privilege option and make it easy to use without totally disrupting. But we still need to, even though those are in place, we still need to actually put the types of responses in place or detection in place, as I mentioned, that security risk management. So as we go into our identity protection here, my particular connection will not show up because I didn't do anything risky in there. So what I'm going to show you is kind of a historical. This particular user logged into this machine. This is an example of the workflow with our TDR to show that this particular user ran some pretty risky commands, trying to actually modify or read the password file on this particular Linux host. Then with our user behavior analytics, our identity security intelligence layer, all these things coming together with Cora AI to actually create a risk level of severity level high for this particular user because of the function they tried to do. But as you see, right now in my particular demo environment, it's set as a manual process. This can be automated, integrated in with a SIEM or SOAR platform in order to actually create an automated response for someone to take action. So there's ways to integrate this in so that it's constantly reviewed. An administrator doesn't actually have to come to this console and check it. All right, so the dashboard approach from an administrative perspective for the TDR actually shows the criticality and the levels of severity throughout with the top alerted users. So it still gives that capability of showing that type of control from an administrative perspective, SOC, NOC, however you want to see it. This particular dashboard can be used for that as well.
Yeah, John, just to interject, I mean, for the folks on the call here, monitoring what these identities are doing, especially identities that are being utilized by AI, this is how you monitor what the AI is doing, not maybe specifically their exact access methods and what they're interacting with data, but if and how that identity is being used, especially in development use cases and other things. This is typically visibility an organization does not have. And really, one of the only ways of monitoring what those AI agents are potentially doing, by their privilege and their identity. So again, this insight and visibility that is provided by these identity threat detection response solutions also is a fairly significant trend and net new adoption that we see organizations exploring. Kind of think of it like EDR for the identity infrastructure. It's very, very logical that monitoring this, provides the visibility necessary to protect the organization, from the abuse of that privilege and overprivilege.
Yes, correct. Thank you for that. So kind of wrapping it up. So we've gone through the CyberArk platform. So as many of you know, the Zilla acquisition earlier this year has given us a lot more capabilities around IGA solution, a modern IGA approach to truly do access reviews on particular user accounts and really monitor those identities in a way that for compliance as well as automation capabilities. With this one, just kind of wanted to point out the ease of access with the Zilla console is the sheer fact that this is my demo environment. I have over 5,000 users in here. I have these 26 inactive users. The great thing is this interface was built specifically not for a IT specific individual. It was built for someone who's actually doing audits on a daily basis, someone who just truly needs to get to the access they need quickly. When it comes down to that, that's what these hyperlinks are here to do that quick review. As you can see, these are my inactive users. I can drill down into these individual users, seeing the access that they have, so I can do a manual access review. But one thing I wanted to leave you with is with Zilla Security and our modern IGA approach for really wrapping everything together, it's kind of closing the loop to create an automated response, not necessarily for a detection of a risk, but also being able to truly do identity lifecycle management so they can be given the right amount of access at the right time, or therefore removed from, say they leave the organization, as I was showing in this particular example, this user leaving the organization. So all of these applications, they would need their permissions removed from in order to maintain compliance for the organization. And so I've gone through the modern PAM approach with secure infrastructure access, that ephemeral access using zero standing privilege, as well as secure cloud access, accessing a cloud administrative console. We've talked about detecting identity-based threats with our TDR solution, as well as using Zilla to show the unnecessary entitlements that exist within the organizations. So really, to kind of close this out, this is the modern identity security in action, aligned in zero trust, zero standing privilege, responsive to threats, and streamlined for both IT and the end user. So thank you for this, and I'll turn it over.
Great demo before Chris cuts over. I'm going to try to get the question and answer juices going. So back on your example around ephemeral and just in time. So I just want to make it very clear. So because what I saw, and make sure I saw it right, is you didn't have a privilege on that machine, and then you were able to log in as an admin, and then when you logged off, that user account goes away. Is that correct?
That is correct. My privilege is elevated at the time that connection string is created or begun. That as I log in, then I am elevated. Privilege is elevated. I'm able to do it. When I log out, it's removed. Zero standing privilege is there.
And that's a great feature, and I'll let you guys talk to why. But one of the other things I just want to make note of is if you guys want to get deeper in a demo, John is awesome, and there's so much more he could show. He could show you privilege around PowerShell. I've seen a bunch of demos, and he does a great job. So if you guys want to see more privilege access scenarios, definitely reach out post webinar. And Chris, I'll hand it over to you. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no worries, man. Just to comment on that, it's not elevating the end user's account, right? We want to, that I think was probably pre-zero standing privilege where just-in-time kind of came into play. It was like, let's elevate John's user ID on the fly. The problem with that scenario is that John's potential password hash still exists on that target system because he's authenticated. But what we're doing is we're using that ephemeral account that is created on the fly, and we're giving the privileges to that account. And then once the session is over, that account is literally washed away. It no longer exists. So not only the privileges are removed, but the account that was used to log in is actually removed, which elevates the level of zero standing privileges because we're not leaving behind a password hash that could be gained by an attacker that potentially could be used the next time that John gets elevated in some way, shape, or form. So very, very clear on the fact that we are not elevating an end user account, that we are in fact creating ephemeral accounts on the fly, which makes it that much easier, that much better. But kind of moving on and talking about the other identities within an organization, those machines, and really kind of hyper focusing on AI and what we're doing in that functionality. Obviously with that 82 number, we have to understand that there's so many different types of non-human identities that exist in every organization. CyberArk has kind of put together our portfolio to be able to handle all of those different use cases, from certificate lifecycle management to SSH keys on machines. Imagine a world where you never have to worry about an SSH key ever again. That is my wish when talking to Unix and Linux administrators, is being able to really truly control SSH keys and the amount of them that are out there. Who cares if there's a 10,000 or 10 million? It doesn't matter. Even if people have the ability to control and create more, doesn't matter, because you can eliminate them from ever being used as an authentication source. Now, all the way to secrets management and controlling secrets within those cloud CSPs, we really are creating an umbrella of different solutions. And this is why it's not just secrets management or certificate management. It's machine identity security, because there's a ton of different use cases there. Now, of course, not to mention, where are all of these things? One of the things that is about ready to release is our discovery and context functionality. You can see down the left-hand side how many different workloads exist, secrets that are out there, AI agents, certificates. All of these things are really going to come into play here to really gain visibility. And where should everybody start? Right? Just like with the threat detection and response, you've got the criticality kind of saying, hey, there's some external secrets with no rotation policy. We need to get on that right away. And that's why it's going to be listed there. But the AI agents is what's really taking over. So we're going to wrap talking about this topic. AI agents and platforms that are available today that really take advantage of this functionality create a ton of risk. There's just no way, shape, or form about it that we can change that level of spectrum of risk there. It's AI agents that need identities that have to be able to access some privileged data in some way, shape, or form. And we're going to treat those just like any other identity within an organization. And so what CyberArk is building is the ability for you to be able to take ownership through MCP proxies and be able to put the same level of contextual controls that you do for humans and other machines, but with those AI agents. So that MCP proxy will provide access management, compliance, threat detection, and response to be able to provide where an agentic architecture exists to the data and the platforms that they're looking to control. So with access management, we're going to be able to provide authentication rights, contextual policies. What are they allowed to access? Secret injection if necessary. On the compliance side, audit, so you know what each agent is actually doing, even potentially session recording, and especially discovery and context. Now, the real banger here comes out with threat detection and response, because if that agentic AI agent is essentially compromised and it's doing something that it's not supposed to be doing, or doing something that maybe it doesn't really do on a regular basis, we're going to throw off alarms to make sure that everybody knows exactly what's happening. Now, of course, like I said, we are building this. We are on the doorstep of this release. There is the community version of Agent Guard and Agent Watch. It currently integrates with CyberArk Conjur, as well as AWS Secrets Manager and local environment variable files. So it's things that you can take advantage of right away. But again, we are days away from the release of our agentic AI solution for our customers to be able to take advantage of those as they start to take advantage of agentic AI out there. So with all that being said, as you can tell, AI is out there. It is being used in many different forms, and CyberArk is a one-stop shop to be able to handle all of the different identities, not just agentic AI identities, but also human level identities, and then all of the other secrets management, certificate management world problems that you might have. And we definitely encourage you guys to give us a call to just really just talk this through. Of course, our friends at Alchemy, they know our technologies as much as we do, and they're more than happy to have that first level conversation with you guys. And when you're ready, you can get the CyberArk experts involved. I will be more than happy to have those conversations. So before I turn it back over to Pete and Mark, I just want to say thank you from the CyberArk side for having us and listening in over the past 50 minutes. But
all right, thank you. And got 2 call to actions. So the first thing is our Identity Mastermind workshop. I'll put a link in the chat as well if you're a little weary of QR codes. And I'll also send a link post session as well. So give me a second. I will post that link. But we do have what we call our Identity Strategy Mastermind. I call it, workshop. And it's a great use of your time, and it's complimentary. Again, complimentary. Take advantage of it. It's a great way to understand, how Alchemy works, get plugged into CyberArk a little deeper, and really understand where you are and where you can go with your identity. So that's our first call to action. And then our second call to action is, what I'm going to call our PAM interactive tour. So CyberArk has a lot of great things on their website. And one of the things I took away is I'm going to try to help get you guys a little bit more educated on PAM. And they have a great interactive tour. And so I created a little landing page to point you guys to that, and definitely check out that. You'll fill in the form and it points you right to their interactive page, and you can go through and understand a little bit more in depth what is PAM, privileged access management, and how is CyberArk addressing it today. So definitely check these 2 resources out. Awesome. Well, I want to thank everybody for jumping on to our 5th session. We got our next session is at the end of August, and we're going to be talking more about AI, but more from a dev perspective. So keep an eye out for that. And then we got a lot of great topics coming after August as well. I want to thank our friends from CyberArk for jumping on today and taking time. And Mark, as always, thanks for taking time out of your busy day. Thanks everybody for jumping on. We'll hope to see you on the next one. And as I always say, have a great day and see everybody on the flip side.